In the near future, Earth is overpopulated, so countries must cut their population down by 5% every year. Some places kill the elderly or limit the annual births, but the USA kills the students with the lowest grades on a test known as the thinning. In Texas, Governor Dean is very supportive of this program, so his son Blake fails the test on purpose to teach him a lesson. Dean manipulates the results to replace Blake with Lena, the best in the class. However, the teens expose the trick on the news. It turns out the results have been modified for years, so rich students never fail. Instead of taking the blame, Dean pretends security head Mason did it and allows his son to be taken away in order to save his career. During Blake's funeral, Dean plays the part of a sad father perfectly. His campaign manager, Georgina, informs him that FBI agent Morris has been assigned to the case, so she's taken Mason somewhere secret away from the investigation. Now Dean can concentrate on the election since he's a candidate for president. Meanwhile, Lena is approached by the press, and she avoids any questions about suing the school. Later at home, Morris continues interrogating Lena and reveals she has a picture of her and Blake kissing, but Lena swears it had just been an emotional moment. Morris notices that since Lena's mom died, the girl has lots of debt while having to take care of her younger siblings. Reporters are always surrounding the house too. After Morris leaves, Lena is visited by Dean's assistant Jack, who explains the governor wants to see her. Lena agrees to a meeting but gets angry when Dean offers her to join his team, realizing he wants her to talk nicely about him to improve his image. Even though she needs the money, she turns down the offer and Jack takes her home. However, during the trip, he releases a gas that puts Lena to sleep. Moments later, Lena wakes up in an abandoned building where Jack is waiting with other suspicious people. This includes Miss Cole, her sibling's school teacher. It turns out that Jack and Miss Cole work for an organization called The Fight, which is against the thinning system and knows how to get people out of the country. They want to stop Dean from becoming president, or they'll never defeat the thinning, so they ask Lena to take the job and spy on him to bring him down from the inside. In the meantime, Lena's friend Kellen gets a job with the famous reporter Wendy. He wants to write about the school case, but since he's new, he's only given menial tasks for now. However, he still does research in his free time and goes to the funeral home to interview the employees, only to discover none of them handled Blake's body. That night, Kellen tells Lena to come with him to the cemetery. Together they dig out Blake's grave and discover the coffin is empty. It turns out all the students that failed the test aren't actually executed. They are secretly taken to an underground factory belonging to Ashuru Global and forced to work. It's all a conspiracy to get free labor. Blake's group is taken to a room with a big screen and a cheerful video explains they were chosen to help the country progress and get a second chance at life. The company promises that the most productive member of the program gets reintroduced to society. The students are relieved and celebrate, but Blake is still wary. Afterward, the students get a device inserted in their necks and a quick scan assigns them to different sectors of the factory. Blake wonders what would happen if he refuses to work, but the guards immediately make him move. Next, the students are taught the rules. Each day is separated in 3 sections: 14 hours of labor, an hour of dining and personal time, and lastly sleeping. The place is under a strict curfew they must respect. As a camera shows the students the different working areas, Blake is shocked to see Ellie among the workers. She was his girlfriend in high school until she failed the test last year. Blake runs to her and kisses her, but Ellie tells him to wait for their free time. This is seen by a boy nearby. After work hours, the couple goes to an empty room to do the dirty. That night, Blake discovers some people like Heather truly think they were chosen for something big. Their conversation is interrupted by an alarm, and they look out to discover a boy trying to self-delete. A small group led by Cage encourages him to do it, but when the boy jumps, the guards catch him with a net. Then Cage starts yelling snip snip, and Heather explains that any person who refuses to work is sent to the infirmary, where they are modified to make them docile. At that moment the guy that saw the kiss points at Blake on the window, and Cage comes to meet him. He's condescending as he explains Ellie is his now, so if Blake even looks at her, Cage will kill him. The next day at the cafeteria, Blake has to watch how Cage keeps kissing and touching Ellie, who clearly doesn't like it. Cage and his gang are known as the Worthy and were selected by the company to supervise the other workers. They are also first in line for the reintroduction. After the gang leaves the table, Blake confronts Ellie, who tells him to go away to protect him. Suddenly Cage's thugs surround Blake and also ask him to leave, so Blake responds by fighting them. He manages to throw in some good moves, but Cage soon catches him and calls security. Blake pushes Cage away and runs away with Ellie. However, as soon as they enter another room, they are surrounded by guards who beat them down. To Blake's shock, the leader is Mason, who was relocated here to keep him hidden. Mason is happy to see Blake and has his revenge by breaking his leg. 8 months later, Dean continues to campaign with only a few days left for the election. Lena has been working in his team and talking him positively about him on the news, while in private she sends all the intel to Cole and Jack. Lena is getting tired because there hasn't been any progress, but luckily Cole announces a plan. Everything they need is in Georgina's computer, so a hacker gives Lena a device to access it and copy the important files. Kellen hears everything while trying to hide in the background, but Jack's team know he's there. Sometime later, Dean needs to practice for the debate, and Lena volunteers as her opponent, using the chance to say all the horrible things she thinks about him while pretending it's an act. Meanwhile, Ashuru Global's stocks keep on growing, and their technology is spreading through the whole world. At the factory, Blake works and follows the rules to avoid trouble. He also doesn't talk to Ellie to protect her from Cage. Blake's leg is still limping because every few days Cage and his gang enter his room at night and break it again. When Blake goes to the infirmary, the doctor is suspicious and asks questions, but Blake only says he fell. Seeing another student being dragged to the alteration room for refusing to work, Blake guesses there's no reintroduction and asks the doctor for help, but she is too scared to do anything. In the meantime, cage fights are held during recreation time. Cage is the current champion and very strong, always leaving his opponents barely alive. The guards usually don't do much, but Blake convinces them to take the latest loser to the infirmary or he'll die. When Cage sees Blake in the audience, he swears that one day they'll fight too. Afterward, Blake looks for Heather and asks her to secretly inform Ellie to be at Cage's boxing match the next day. Heather touches him and asks him to get together with her instead, since her thing with Ellie is obviously over, but Blake turns her down. Later, Heather finds Ellie and tells her Blake doesn't want to see her anymore. It turns out she's working for Cage, who promises to recommend her for reintroduction. Back in town, Kellen tells Wendy about his theory as he presents his research, not mentioning he did lots of hacking for it. The tablets where they perform the thinning tests are made by Ashuru Global, and Georgina works for them. The company has doubled their production, yet they laid off half their workforce, so Georgina said they use automation. However, Kellen discovered the company is paying for machines they never received. He took a tour of the new campus and didn't find enough space for a manufacturing area full of machines. There's no paperwork related to outsourcing, but he did discover that Ashuru has been buying military rations for at least 100,000 people. He concludes that the company is using the students as slaves, but sadly he doesn't have concrete proof, and Wendy dismisses him. When Kellen gets in his car, a masked man appears behind him and tries to suffocate him with a bag. Kellen activates the car alarm, and the guy runs away not to be caught. At home, Lena finds Blake in her room, and they start kissing, only for Blake to suddenly transform into Jack. At the moment, Lena wakes up from the dream because there's someone knocking on her door. It's Kellen who has brought beer and plays really loud music, pretending he wants to party. But this is actually an act to cover up their meeting, and he shows Lena some notes with an explanation of what's going on, saying Ashuru is always listening. To help, Lena gives him Morris' card. On the day of the election, Lena drops her siblings off at Cole's, who promises she'll take the kids to safety. After Lena leaves, Cole reveals a secret passage at the back of her house. Then Lena is picked up by Jack, and during the trip he explains he joined the fight to get revenge for his sister, who failed the exam for being dyslexic. The duo makes it to Ashuru's building where Dean and his team are waiting for the results, and Lena kisses Jack for good luck. Moments later, Lena goes to the bathroom and locks it before she escapes through the window. She carefully walks on the edge of the building and makes a jump that almost makes her fall, but she holds on just in time and manages to reach the other window to enter Georgina's office. Using the hacker's device, she accesses the computer and finds all the secrets of the factory, crying when she discovers Blake is actually alive. While she transfers the files, Jack overhears Georgina say she left something in her office, so he texts Lena to warn her. Lena asks for more time, and Jack lies to Georgina, telling her that Dean urgently wants to see her. When Georgina gets to Dean and discovers Jack lied, she sends her men to arrest him. At the same time, the guards are getting suspicious of Lena's delay and start breaking the lock. Luckily, Lena finishes the download and climbs back into the bathroom just in time to open the door. She sees Jack has been arrested and rushes outside to call Morris, asking for help. At the factory, Blake waits for Cage to finish his latest match and challenges him to a fight, saying he gets to be the leader if he wins. Blake surprises Cage by being a fantastic opponent that hits hard even with his wounded leg. While the guys fight, Ellie can't stop thinking about the breakup and stops working to return to her room. When the guards find her, she appears unconscious, so they try to touch her, only for Ellie to suddenly bite the guard's finger. Then she tries fighting them, but they are clearly stronger and throw her against a mirror to knock her down. Next, they tie her to a stretcher to take her to the infirmary for modification, and they are seen by Heather, who feels guilty. Back to the fight, Blake overpowers Cage, but also offers his hand to make a truce. A furious Cage responds by bringing Blake down and starts kicking him. Since playing fair doesn't work, Blake takes his cane and beats Cage with it with one quick movement. The crowd chants Blake's name as he's declared the new leader, but the moment is interrupted by an alarm. Heather arrives and tells them about Ellie, so Blake gathers Cage and his gang for a talk. He explains there's no reintroduction to society and they'll be stuck there forever, which convinces the guys to help him with a plan. Minutes later, Blake returns to work and gets hurt in one of the machines, so a guard takes him to the infirmary with the help of another worker. In the cafeteria, Cage and another guy start a fight on purpose. Soon all the other teens join and chaos takes over the cafeteria. Thus the guards have to come in to try to calm them down. As the alarm rings, Blake and his friend fight the guards in the corridor, easily bringing them down before stealing their keys. Next, Blake goes to the infirmary, where he knocks out the doctor right before she can use her drill on Ellie. A second doctor surprises Blake from the back and captures him, so Blake grabs a syringe to stab him before knocking him out. Then Blake and Ellie share a kiss before he takes off the trackers in their necks with a scalpel. In the cafeteria, a furious Mason comes in and starts beating up kids, but Cage refuses to talk. Then Mason checks the tracker on his phone and realizes Blake is behind this. He follows the tracker to the infirmary, but the couple is already gone. Wearing the doctor's uniforms, Blake and Ellie are moving around undetected. Meanwhile, Lena and Morris meet on top of a building, and Lena gives her the device with the intel, explaining everything she knows. Morris says Lena may be bugged and asks for her things, only to suddenly destroy her phone. It turns out she's corrupt, and she takes out her gun, telling Lena to jump to make it look like she self-deleted. At Cole's tunnel, one of the rebels reveals to be a double agent and shoots the hacker before taking a kid hostage. As he explains Georgina threatened his children, the kid bites his hand to push him off, and Cole uses a piece of wood to knock him down. Then she beats him up to death. Back to Morris, she gets distracted by her phone ringing, and Lena uses the chance to push her to the ground, taking back the device before running away. Morris opens fire on her, so Lena has no choice but to jump through a window and land in an old guy's apartment. The device fell in a bucket with water, so Lena takes it to Kellen, hoping he can repair it. Kellen puts it in rice and uses some heat to accelerate the process. The trick works, and Kellen immediately makes a copy of all the files in a second hard drive just in case. Then he leaves to take the device to Wendy and tells Lena to stay in the house for safety. However, as soon as Kellen starts his car, it explodes and kills him. A shocked Lena looks through the window and sees Morris approaching with some men, so she grabs the hard drive and a few objects to set up a trap. When the men come in, they accidentally step on it and the apartment explodes. Lena escapes through the roof, only to be found by Morris. The women start fighting and Morris easily overpowers her. However, Lena surprises her with a knife and stabs her before throwing her down the stairs, killing her. At that moment, Dean and his team learn he won the election and start celebrating. In the tunnel, Cole manages to leave with Lena's siblings into another country. Soon, Lena makes it to the TV station and finds Wendy to give her the hard drive. Seeing the information and learning about Kellen's death causes Wendy to cancel the coverage of the election and send choppers to investigate Ashuru. At the factory, Blake and Ellie find a hatch on the floor and go through it to get to the tunnels, unaware that Mason is following them. After lots of walking, they find some stairs and finally return to the surface, but they don't know where they are. Suddenly, Blake is attacked by Mason and another confrontation begins as the teens try to fight him together. Mason overpowers Blake and tries choking him, but he gets distracted when a helicopter appears above them. Ellie uses the chance to bring Mason down with a rock. The chopper records everything, and soon the whole country sees that Blake is alive on the news. Dean freaks out, but Georgina tells him she's got it under control. Moments later, Blake is brought to the TV station, and Lena runs to kiss him, but she freezes when she sees Ellie is there as well. Meanwhile, Dean gives his first speech as president. Georgina uses this new power to send the police after all the people that were against Dean, meaning Blake, Ellie, and Lena get arrested. As the police car transporting the teens reaches the road outside of town, it suddenly gets hit by something and falls on its side, causing a crash. Then the doors open to reveal Jack, who explains he's with the FBI and wants the teens to help him fight Dean.